to another math lesson with Mr. Woodford. I'm excited to go through another lesson with you. We're off to an objective 1.2 to start a new lesson, and we're going to be talking about adding integers with different signs. So yesterday we talked about adding integers with the same sign, and we worked on absolute value as well as doing more representation of numbers with something called counters, right? More visual representation of looking at numbers to solve them, especially when they have the same sign. Today I want to look at, well, what do we do when we have numbers with different signs, right? Whether they're positive and one's negative. What do we do in that situation? And that's what I want to look at today. So first, let's start off by completing our bell work. As we always tend to do, let's work on our bell work assignment. Which, give me a second, let me pull it up. All right, so you should be looking at the screen. Let's start off by completing the bell work. As normal in our class, I give you 5 minutes to begin to work on the bell work. So at this time, you can pause the video, complete the bell work, and get yourself a chance to see if you can complete these. If you can complete these questions. All right. I hope you had enough time there. Obviously, I'm not putting on the 5 minutes here as we do in class, but I want us to go over them. So I want to go over the questions with you to make sure that you did get them correct. Okay. If you complete the first one, you should have got negative 74. Let's make sure it's right in here. Give me a second. I apologize. Technical difficulties. All right, and it's responding. Good. Great. So you should have got negative 74, right? And that could be done if you did the absolute value of 37, another absolute value of negative 37, right? And they will both give you 37. Now notice that these are both negative 37s that we're dealing with, because you should have been able to rewrite this to negative 37 plus negative 37. So this should have been rewritten. I should have wrote this as negative 37 plus negative 37. So that way both of these are negative 37s. Then you would add them together, you would get 74. And because they both were negative, you would make sure your answer reflected that as well. Similar to B, if you did absolute value or if you did the actual circle representation, you would have ended up getting negative 12 as your answer. Now, I do want to rewrite this so you understand. It's important that you guys practice rewriting subtraction problems as addition problems, because that'll help you answer it. And lastly, here, when we write this, negative 4 plus negative 6 plus negative 1, right? Your answer should have came out to be negative 11. All right. Now, let's go into what we're talking about today. I want to show you two different things, and I showed some you already in class, but I want to show you how to add integers with counters, right? And I want to also show you how to add integers with absolute value. These are two different ways, and whatever method you decide to use is completely up to you. It's okay. If you decide that you like the counter method better, then use it. If you like, I really like the absolute value method better, fine, use that method. Or if you prefer the number line, or you prefer just trying to do it off the top of your head, I'm just showing you options. That way you can get the answers right every single time. First, let's start off by showing you a method with counters. The steps is this. We're going to look at the expression that we're given and the equation that we need to solve. And we're going to say, okay, what numbers do we have? What's the positive number? What's the negative number? Remember, this is when you have different signs, not the same. Yesterday, we focused on negative negatives. We focused on positive positives. Today, we're going to look at negative positive and positive negative when they're different signs. And we're going to create circles to represent those two numbers. If they're positive, open circles. If they're negative, shaded circles. And then we're going to cross out all the pairs that we see and count the remaining. So let me show you. Look at number 1, 3 minus 4. 3 minus 4 can be rewritten as 3 plus negative 4. It's good that we get into the habit of rewriting subtraction problems as addition problems. Now I can say, oh, I see, I have a positive 3 and I have a negative 4. So I'm going to first represent my positive 3 with 3 open circles. Okay. Then I'm going to represent my -4 with 4 closed circles. Okay. Now that I have it visually represented, what I want to do is I want to say, okay, great. Are there any pairs that I need to cancel out? Can I cancel out any pairs? So now I want to say, okay, great. I can cancel out 1, 2, 3 pairs. And my answer here is -1. Okay. The answer there is -1. Right? How do I know it's -1? Because there's only one left, and because that one's shaded in, it means it represents a -1. Okay? And you can see this key. This key was here. I put it there prior to us starting, but just to remember that open means positive, shaded means negative. Okay? Let's do one more. All right? Uh, this is -5 plus 3. Since it starts off with -5, since there's no subtraction in the middle, believe it or not, I can just rewrite it just like that. It doesn't need to be written as anything other than -5 plus 3. Now, I could say -5 is representing 5, right? 5 numbers here. And with those 5 numbers being represented, they're going to all be shaded. All shaded. Now, I want to say, okay, I got covered the -5. Now I want to go and make sure I represent the +3. 1, 2, 3. So now I represent the +3. One open and one closed cancels out. Cancels out. Cancels out. I am left with 2. Is that a +2? No, it's a -2. How do I know it's negative? Because they're shaded. Because it's shaded, it tells me it's a negative, and I count how many there are. 1, 2. That means this answer is -2. Okay, this is one way to actually solve integers with different signs, right? Using this visual representation to draw them out and do it. Now, if the numbers are past 13, maybe you don't want to make 13 or 14 or 16 circles. Maybe you don't want to do that many. Maybe you don't want to make 40 or 50 circles. But there's another method I want to show you. Okay. After you've practiced the practice problems down here, I will tell you the answers, right? That way you make sure you arrive at the same thing when you visually represent it. This one, you should come out with the answer that's equal to -7. Number 4, when you visually represent your numbers, it should come out to equal -4. Okay? Make sure when you draw your counters, it does show that there's more than enough to give you -7 as well as more than enough to give you -4. All right? Let's go to the second method to adding or finding the sum of integers with different signs. Now, we have model activity number 2, question number 1, which is for us to add -48 with the +12. Okay? Let me just move this timer out the way. Okay, I won't be timing you. Now, -48 is way too big for me to write tons of counters. So that's not what I want to do. Now, do I have to rewrite this? No. It's already written as an addition problem, so I can honestly just write -48 plus 12. But I do want to do the absolute value method here. Now, the absolute value method, which was the second thing described in our notes, it says steps for adding integers with different signs. We're going to take the absolute value of both integers. Then we're going to subtract the lesser from the greater and use a sign of the integers with the greater absolute value. So let's look at it. Let's go back to our problem. First step, it says to take the absolute value of both integers. The absolute value of -48 is 48. The absolute value of 12 is 12. Then it says subtract. The second step says subtract the lesser from the greater, or big number minus a small number. And that's their absolute value numbers, right? 48 minus 12 right? 48 minus 12 gives us 36. All right. The third step says to use the sign of the bigger absolute value number. So the bigger absolute value number was 48. What was the sign of its original number? Negative. So I'm going to use the sign negative 48. So I'll put a negative there to add to my answer. So negative 48 plus 12 is negative 36. Now, let me show you one more example before I allow you to finish practicing, could do the reflection questions, and also do your homework. 40 minus 105. 40 minus 105 actually can be rewritten because it's not in the form that we want. We want it in a addition form. This is not addition, this is subtraction. So we're going to do 40 plus parentheses negative 105. Okay. Now, what we want to do here is we want to say, okay, 40 plus negative 105. I want to find the absolute value of both. That's what the first step says. Absolute value of both numbers. What is the absolute value of 40? 40. What is the absolute value of negative 105? 105. Now notice, children, if you did not rewrite this as 40 plus negative 105, you would have ended up probably recognizing that as 105 here. And you would have missed out on recognizing which number was actually, what's the sign of the bigger number if you didn't put that negative there. Okay, so it's important that you rewrite it as addition so you can see the two numbers that you're dealing with and that they are different symbols. Now, I have the actual different symbols here. I have the absolute value. It says take the bigger one and minus the smaller one. Notice this is not always the first number. It could be the second number. That's okay. But make sure you pay attention to which one is actually bigger, the absolute value of which one is bigger. 105 minus 40, look at 65. Now, the final step, step 3, says to take the sign of the bigger absolute value. The bigger absolute value is from 105. So I'm going to add this to my answer to give me negative 65. Now, if there's a question that you have in any of this stuff, feel free to put your question in the Google Classroom page, or feel free to ask on Fridays when we have open sessions, okay? Rewind the tape if you want to find clarity on something I might have said. For questions 3 and 4 of independent practice 2, you should have got these answers when you go to practice, okay? You should have come out with the answer of 100. And you should come out with the answer of, give me 1 second. You should come out with the answer of negative 2. Okay, so that's it for today. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm looking forward to a great session with you guys. You can always rewind this, and it's going to be an incredible year. I'm looking forward to, and always continue to look out for more videos coming regarding our units. Have a great day.